Alright, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the introduction tomorrow, or yesterday, I'm sorry. Of course, this is C.L. Creech, author, creator of One Last Quest, publisher. Yesterday we did the introduction. Tonight, sit back and relax as I read to you Chapter 1, A Chance Meeting. Looking back over our lives, we all had people and groups we remember. Those people are so near and dear to our hearts that no matter how much time passes, we always seem to look back and think about them with a great fondness and joy. For some of us, it was the kids on the playground. For others, it was a baseball or football or basketball or some other sports team. But for a lot of nerds, it was a group of friends sitting around a table in a dimly lit basement rolling dice and going on adventures. Now, throughout history, people have taken the term nerd as a bad word. It conjures up visions of guys with thick glasses, button-up shirts, and pocket protectors. For some, this is true. For others, it was just people who had an obsession with fantasy worlds, far-off places, or creatures that they could only see in their minds and hearts. Now, these are the type of people who see the world that never existed and ask, why can't ours be more like that? Now, our story revolves around this type of nerd. They were the Adventurers of Greythorne! And every Friday and Saturday night for over a decade, they met to fight dragons, slay wizards, and save the world from whatever villainy they encountered that week. No quest was too scary, no enemy was too mighty, and no fantasy was off limits. Now, over the years, they had a lot of players come and go, but the core group was always there, rarely missing a game. Now, they were different ages, they had different jobs, they had different lives away from the game. But for them, it didn't matter. Every week, 4 brave adventurers and their game master would meet with the hope and goal to become something great. Every quest was an adventure, and the tales of those quests would become epic stories that they would talk about for the rest of their lives. Sadly, like all great groups, their time was limited. Real life took hold, and eventually, they all had to go their separate ways. One fateful day many years ago, they slew their final dragon. They completed their final quest. They walked away with the memories forever in their hearts. Their adventures were over. Or so they thought. There was a chance meeting that would reunite them and start them on one last quest. A quest so epic that it would dwarf all adventures before. Danny was kicked back on his couch, watching television and smoking a cigarette. For Danny, it was just a normal evening in his mostly boring life. He was so involved in his television show that he didn't even notice that his potato chip bag was empty until it was too late. "Oh man," Danny said to himself with frustration. "How did chips?" Danny got up off the couch and went to the kitchen, checking the cupboards to find them barren as well. It was just his luck. Just when he was deep into season 3 of his favorite show, Fight for the Throne, he was out of snacks. In his mind, the snacks always made the show seem so much better. "Hey, butthead!" he yelled to his roommate, Tim, who, as usual, was locked up in his room playing video games. "We're all out of salty snacks! You got anything in there?" "Nah, man," Tim yelled back in an almost annoyed tone. "If there's not any in the kitchen, then we're tapped out." "Well, how about you go get some?" Danny yelled back as he put out his cigarette. "I got smoked today. Remember, you're on munchie duty." Tim and Danny didn't have a lot in common. At least in Danny's mind, all they had in common was they shared an apartment and the love for marijuana and food. "I'm always on munchie duty," Danny said with a grumble. "Well, when you get a better smoke hookup like mine, we'll switch out," Tim yelled. Unfortunately, marijuana still wasn't legal in the state Danny lived, so he had to rely on Tim's shady friend to keep them supplied. Wasn't the best solution, but smoke, as they called it, was all that kept Danny from diving into a deep depression. Yeah, whatever," Danny said as he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Danny always hated being the one to have to go get food. Sure, Tim kept them in a steady supply of marijuana, but that stuff got delivered. Tim only came out of his room to answer the door and throw Danny his bag. The few actual friends Danny had were vaguely aware that he even had a roommate. Danny made the drive to the local grocery store. It was only a few minutes from his apartment, so it wasn't a huge inconvenience. But the fact that he was the only one, but the fact he was the one who always had to go out, got under his skin. He'd often find himself debating about whether or not he wanted to change up his living conditions. I swear, one of these days, I'm gonna move out, and Tim can find another pothead to make munchy runs every day, Danny said to himself as he pulled the van into the grocery store parking lot. Danny sat staring out of the window for a moment, as he often did. It seemed like his life was on repeat. He was living the same boring day over and over again. He'd always think back to the last time he was really happy. Back when he'd sit around a table rolling dice with his friends and traveling through an imaginary world. He'd often have to stop to remind himself that those days were long gone. Or so he thought. As Danny got out of the van and started walking toward the store, he was looking at the ground, just muttering to himself. I swear one of these days, I'm gonna make something of myself. Once my band takes off, then no good lazy fucker will be sorry. And I'll be a millionaire, he said to himself. Almost without warning, Danny then bumped into a tall woman, spilling her groceries all over the parking lot. Danny went into a frenzy, feeling horrible for what he just did, not knowing that it was his fault for looking down and not paying attention. I'm so sorry, but please let me pick that stuff up for you, Danny said in a frenzy as both he and the woman knelt to the ground to pick up the fallen items. It's okay, I can get it, she said with a very frustrated tone. Please, it's my fault entirely. Let me. Danny paused as he was gathering the fallen items when he noticed a keychain with a 20-sided die hanging from the woman's purse. He stared at it intently for a moment, reflecting on the great times he had with his group. Dice were the keystone of a role-playing game. One bad roll of the dice, and you could fall into a trap, piss off an ogre, or worst of all, fail a saving throw and watch helplessly as your character dies epically. The 20-sided die was the key die of any great dice set. So do you play role-playing games? Danny asked with genuine curiosity. What? The lady replied in frustrated confusion. Your keychain, Danny said as he pointed to the die. She looked at it briefly and said solemnly, I used to, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, me too, Danny said with a smile, thinking back to his group. I was a part of a pretty great group. We conquered dragons, saved cities, but most of all, we were like family. Groups like that, they only come along once in a lifetime. I understand. I miss my group too, the lady replied in her quiet reflection. We haven't been together in years. I always think about how nice it'd be to see everyone again someday. See the world, see what everyone's been up to. Maybe even run through a dungeon or a cave for old time's sake. I know the feeling. I wonder about my group too. Danny froze for a moment, thinking about the Adventurers of Greythorne. Seeing that die brought up a lot of memories in his mind. He suddenly wanted to talk about them in hopes of remembering the best of the times of his life. There was Rick, Kelly, Jackie. We had the best game master, Danny said as he put the last can in the bag. He looked up and locked eyes with the lady. Something seemed familiar about her, but it took him a moment for it to sink in. Mike? Danny said with a high-pitched confusion in his voice, not sure if he was seeing his old friend or just a hopeful illusion in his mind. Hi, Danny, the lady said with a shy smile. Their eyes remained locked as they both stood up. Danny didn't know what to think or feel. This person had the same eyes and smile as one of his oldest friends, but she was very different. Mike? Is that you? Danny asked with hope and confusion. The lady just gave a small nod, seemingly confirming Danny's suspicions. Mike! Danny exclaimed, hugging his old game master. It's been so long. What's new? Well, I can see what's new. How have you been? Well, what's changed? Well, I can see what's changed. I mean, you look, different. Not that different's bad. You look good different. Is that right? I mean, oh boy. The moment suddenly became very awkward. Mike had gone through a lot of changes, and Danny was thrilled to see his old friend, but had no idea how to react. It's okay, the lady said with a big grin. You're still the same old Danny, I see. Changed a lot. I go by Michelle now. I didn't think anyone around here would recognize me. Almost didn't. Well, let's go grab a bite to eat and catch up, Danny said with an unusual smile and enthusiasm in his voice. I don't think that's the best idea, Michelle said, shaking her head and picking up her bags. Come on, Danny said, almost begging. My treat. Danny, I'd love to, Michelle said with great hesitation. Great, I know this awesome pizza place like 5 minutes from here. Got the best Hawaiian pizza within like a 3-hour drive. They just opened a couple months ago. Danny, I'd love to, but I can't. I'm not really comfortable around people, especially people from my hometown. Well, we don't have to eat in. We can go through the drive-thru and eat in my van or your car, whatever it is you drive. Whatever makes you comfortable. I just want to catch up. I can't right now. I'm busy tonight, Michelle said as she began to walk away. Then how about we meet for breakfast tomorrow morning? Danny yelled after her. We can meet in the park where we all used to practice sword fighting. There's benches on the back side near the river. Michelle paused for a moment, thinking about what to do. She didn't want to see or talk to anyone, but the thought that maybe an old friend would just, but the thought about maybe seeing an old friend would be just what she needed. I don't know what to say, Michelle said, turning back to Danny. Well, come on, we'll meet early, 8 a.m. Nobody will be there. It'll be just us. We can catch up. I don't think I can, Danny, Michelle said, turning back to leave. I'll bring sausage biscuits and coffee just like the old days, Danny exclaimed, running after her. You're not going to take no for an answer, are you, Danny? Michelle said with a sigh as she turned once again to see Danny only steps away from her. What do you think? I'll even, Danny said with a smile. I'll even bring grape jelly. I know it's your favorite. Fine, Michelle said, giving in. 8 a.m. on the dot at the benches. But if you're 5 minutes late or my coffee is cold, then I'm gone. Michelle gave Danny a stern look, making sure to lock eyes with him, so he knows she's serious. Deal! Danny exclaimed. And with one more quick hug, they parted ways for the night. For Danny, this was a chance to go back to the old days. He was thrilled that he'd get to see his best friend again, and excited to learn about how much she'd changed. For Michelle, it was scary. She was still going through many changes, was unsure of herself. She knew Danny was the healer of the group, and he was good at what he did. In her heart, she was just wondering if he could help her heal. And that's the end of chapter 1, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We're doing this across the whole month of June. 29 episodes, and final on June 30th will be a Q&A with me. Where I'll talk a little more in depth about the book. And if you have any questions, my email address is below. If you'd like to pick up a copy of the book, it's down there as well. Or if you'd like to just tip me for doing this, there's my Cash App. Thank you guys so much. You're wonderful, and I will see you guys tomorrow.